Hello, today we'll be talking about informal used lead acid batteries, also known as ULABS, and the recycling. So here we have our table of contents. We're going to be looking at lead and its uses, the environmental issue and health associated problems of recycling used lead acid batteries, as well as our professionals and their disciplines, and the interventions that they pose for reducing lead poisoning from these informal battery recycling activities and plants. Lead has many uses. It's a naturally occurring element found in the Earth's crust, and it's very versatile and has been found useful in pipes, paint, etc. It's also very easy to extract, which makes it a very sought out after element. As a result, other forms of lead are being utilized, such as those found in car batteries, also known as lead acid batteries. It's also important to keep in mind that majority of automobiles use lead acid batteries. That's not just cars. So in addition to this, there's a high demand for LABSs, labs. 86% of the total global consumption of lead is for the production of lead acid batteries. The lead market is a $19 billion industry. So with these lead acid batteries being handled by a lot of laborers, there are many environmental and health associated problems with the recycling of these batteries. So as a result, as we mentioned before, the lead market is a $1 billion corporation. So as a result, jobs are increasing within the used lead acid battery market, and individuals globally in places, especially places like Africa, China, and Mexico, and more, are informally disposing of the acid and melting it so they can have a job and provide for their families. Because of this, because they're doing this on their own, they do not have proper protocols and guidelines. So laborers and their families who live among the recycling plants and or just work there are greatly exposed to contaminated lead through ingestion, inhalation, and handling of the lead. These battery acids are usually emptied and reburned by the workers, and there's usually very little access or no access to proper ventilation, proper equipment, and proper safety protocols. So lead poisoning causes irreversible neurodevelopmental issues among children, and this is a major issue because no lead is good lead, and this was mentioned in Global Environmental Health. No lead is good lead. So in addition, we have our adults, which are presented with major physical symptoms. So a lot of these symptoms include reproductive harm, so loss of fertility, there's nerve damage, personality changes, muscle weakness, and joint pain. Also, in addition to this, there also are created many different environmental issues in the soil health of our earth, storm runoff, contamination of sewers, because sewers also have sewer health, and groundwater supply. When our groundwater supply gets contaminated, then there's a spillover into other populations of people who may have not been exposed at all, and that just brings harm to everyone and everyone outside of that bubble. So these are our professionals. We have Stephanie Prince, an urban environmental planner at HDR, which I met recently through a grapevine of friends. We have Nicholas Vincho. He's a local mechanic in the town I live at. He's helped my dad a lot. And then we have Kathy Wayne. She's one of my friends, and she's a local science teacher, but she has a lot of experience in a lot of things considering the environment. So she knew about lead acid batteries. So now we're going to be talking about an urban environmental planner's perspective. And fun fact, Stephanie mentioned that she worked at the New York City Department of Sanitation. So she was involved in a lot of cleanup processes with a lot of abandoned warehouses, vacant lots, etc. So from her perspective, she mentioned that two major problems in unregulated recycling are that there's not enough education for both manufacturers and the labor force. There's also not enough access to appropriate health care, human rights, and the individuals working informally just want a job. They don't know of the associated risks. So a lot of people will have to work certain jobs because they need to provide, and this happens globally everywhere. But it's up to us to providing proper equipment, workplace laws, and exposure limits for other areas. These are some short-term interventions. And also documenting where these batteries are going and how they're being disposed. As for a long-term intervention, legally disposing labs is very important. So we can do this by providing mass recycling zones for laborers and other people to bring their batteries in exchange for incentives like money and food, as well as behavior change. Behavior change will take a while, but if we have a few protocols in place for people and incentives, they're going to feel more inclined to recycle these batteries. This is from my good friend Nick. He is a mechanic, so we're looking at it from a mechanic's perspective. His point was that batteries are essential to automobiles, but when they break down, they become a problem. You need to recycle them properly, otherwise they bring all sorts of hazards. So he was mentioning that keeping your battery to last longer is a good idea. You can perform maintenance on automobiles so the battery lasts longer. There's also different alternatives such as lithium-ion batteries and nickel metal hydride batteries, which are being used a lot in electric cars. As for short-term interventions, we have proper handling of the batteries. So instead of having people informally recycle these batteries, they can take them over to their local mechanic shop. And a lot of areas, as Nick was mentioning, is that a lot of different state departments and city departments will actually give a stipend to mechanics and people that are giving the battery to mechanics to recycle it. So this is a good idea. And in addition, we have our long-term intervention, which is following regulations for proper disposal. So as we mentioned from our urban planner, being able to have these regulations is very important. And also going through citywide regulations, because private companies unfortunately will go on their own rules. So it's important to just have things regulated. Here we have a teacher's perspective. So Kathy is also another local teacher, science teacher, and she was mentioning that education and raising awareness are at the forefront of this issue. A lot of countries around the world do not have proper education and understanding the risks that come with working with used lead-acid batteries. So a short-term and long-term intervention is providing education for individuals via community events to learn about the health risks of lead-acid batteries, ways to stay protected, and also the difference between general waste and hazardous waste and what to stay away from and not expose themselves to. So it's up to people also to learn and be educated, but then the long-term intervention part of it is for that behavior to stick, as we mentioned earlier. So these are a few things. Discussion. It is so interesting to note that all of these professionals have widely different day-to-day tasks, but they effectively collaborate in this issue of ULABS and reducing lead poisoning. And the most important things that I learned throughout this whole process was that for lasting change, we need proper protective equipment, proper recycling zones, community recycling events, education, raising awareness, and behavior change. All of these things together and many more, I'm sure, that are out there will help us really drive for change in ULAB recycling. Thank you so much for watching.